Hello, BookTube. We're back with another Desert Island Books, and this is a special one with Mary Catherine Pazzano, who is a wonderful singer from Canada. Take it away, and she has a YouTube channel as well, so nobody scream at me. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. My name is Mary Catherine Pazzano, and I'm a Canadian-based, mainly jazz singer, but I also do freelance work as well with some classical projects. And I'm a voice teacher. I'm a music educator. I'm a choir director. But my main love is performing mainly jazz. And yeah, you can find me on my YouTube channel is youtube.com/mcjazzsinger. And you can also find me on my website, marycatherinepazzano.com, Pazzano.
I'll leave all the links down below, and you have CDs as well, don't you?
I do. I have a debut album that came out about 5 years ago now called You're Gonna Hear From Me. And if you're a film buff, you know that's from the movie Inside Daisy Clover with Natalie Wood. And I've got a Christmas album coming out this November. So
wow, that'll be good. Yeah, and that's the other thing. You are a film buff as well, aren't you?
Yes, Turner Classic Movies is on all day, all day, every day around here.
I wish I'm in the UK here now, and I wish there is a Turner Classic network here. And when I first came, when I saw that, I thought, oh, fantastic! I subscribed to get a service. It's got commercials, and all they play is new stuff.
Oh, really?
I'm so disappointed. Well, new stuff meaning post 1970, and okay, maybe so at 3 a.m. they'll play something. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I wasn't pleased. So, and since then, and protest, I have not had commercial television. I just watch, as you can see, videos, Blu-rays, and that's all I use.
I was gonna say, there's no shortage of DVDs over there. It looks like.
yeah, and books.
Excellent.
So you've got your 8 books, and yeah, we're gonna put you on an island. You're gonna be stranded on an island, and it's a desert island. You could be there forever, and it's everybody's going to the same island, and because it's a multi-dimensional island.
Okay.
And how do you get there, you'll ask? Not by that.
Are we being taken?
It'll most likely be a 3-hour tour.
Okay.
You won't be a professor and Marianne to help you, so we'll jump.
Do I get to change my clothes every episode?
Yeah. Yeah, you have a complete wardrobe for life, and everything else you ever wanted that just maybe in one small, it's an interdimensional box as well that you can go in and get everything out of.
Perfect.
And you've got your 8 books. Yep. And so we can start, and I'll try to jump in with some information if I know there's a few that I don't know. So, okay. But we'll see what we can do.
Okay, sounds good. So the first one I have, this is in no order, by the way, but the first one I have is Esther Williams' autobiography, The $1 Million Mermaid. Have you read this?
Yeah, a long time. I think it came out in the 80s, didn't it? I think.
I don't know. Let's see. Maybe the early 90s. Oh, 99.
Oh, no, I haven't read that one then. I read one I was sure that was from the 80s. I thought it was, they might have used a similar picture on the front. So
okay.
So why do you like her or that biography specifically?
Well, it was one of the first old Hollywood biographies I read, and it was really, I even read it before I really watched Esther's movies, because we used to go up north to a cottage every year, and we would go to the library, and so the film section was already pretty limited, but Esther's book was there, and I knew her from watching the MGM musicals and everything. But it's such a trashy read, to be completely honest. I mean, she just lays it all out, and I doubt she's telling the truth for a lot of it, to be honest. Like, she claims to have been around for that whole Rex Harrison, was it Carol Landis thing, where like she died by suicide and all that stuff. She claims to have been there when that all went down, and I don't think she was. But anyway, it's a great read of all her history of being an Olympic level swimmer and then being discovered at a department store, and how she kind of asserted herself at MGM and made her mark, which I think is untouched. I mean, she has no competition, right? To this day, she's the swimmer of the movies. So anyway, it's a great read and it's funny. So I figure if I need to laugh on a desert island, then she's a good one to bring along with me.
We might need to explain a little bit, sort of what type of movies she did to some of you, because they might not know who she is. So
Sure.
the word musical comes in, so you can describe that, and maybe what's your favorite film that she was in?
Sure. Well, she was kind of known as like the title says, the $1 Million Mermaid. She was a professional swimmer who kind of had a whole category of movie made for her at MGM that resembled the MGM musical. I mean, they were usually produced by the MGM musical producers. So there'd be dancers, there'd be singers. She would do these water ballets, and she would display her diving skills, and she'd always be in a different swimsuit every 2 seconds, and there'd be all these special effects like fire, or she'd be swimming with statues, or jumping off a swing, which in the book she says she broke her neck doing that one, in the movie $1 Million Mermaid, doing a dive. Anyway, so she was kind of known as this mermaid of the screen. And my favorite movie, I'm trying to think. My favorite Esther Williams movie might be, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Dangerous When Wet.
Yeah.
My favorite. I think, and Fernando Lamas is in that, who she married, and she really dishes on her marriage to Fernando Lamas in this book, which was by all accounts, in my mind, a terrible marriage. Of him, like, essentially holding her hostage in her house for 20 years. I don't know if you know that story, but
yeah, I vaguely remember something. And who, what's Fernando Lamas's son? What's his name?
Lorenzo?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Lorenzo Lamas. Yeah. Anyway, I think that might be a little too long to talk about, because I remember some kind of sort of controversy there later and stuff, or I might be thinking of the wrong person.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I won't start saying it because I could be totally wrong, so I better not. But yeah, I remember her films being very opulent in color and everything, because they were Technicolors, if I remember right. And it was what's the guy that did all the synchronization? It wasn't him still doing it, was it, from the 30s?
Busby Berkeley?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was, or it wasn't.
Yeah, she talks in the book about how she brought in Busby, and he was way past his prime doing all those Warner Brothers, the big production numbers, right, with the camera angle from up top and all that stuff. But she did bring him in to coordinate certain numbers, and I think it's in it's an Easy to Love that she brought him in for that. Have you ever seen that water skiing number where yeah. So that was choreographed by him, and apparently he was very much an alcoholic at that time. By that time, and I think he always was, but he was pretty far gone at that point. But she brought him in because she knew that he had the vision to execute it in a really powerful way. And she's right. I mean, they're really fun to watch to this day.
Yeah, because the little bits that I've read with him is where the camera is and stuff like that. But he didn't sort of set up a camera and then look and do this. I think he all had it envisioned in his head before, and then the camera caught it. Yeah. And when you see that, you just go, this guy's weird. How can you have that vision in your head of this? Because it really needs the camera to see, or you need to be in that position to see it.
Yes.
But he was able to do it, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, he must have had that mind of a genius, right? That could just map out the shot in his mind and make it happen. Yeah. Yeah,
no, they're fantastic visually. If anybody hasn't seen them, do take a look, because they're just fabulous, like visually. Technicolor is just glorious on the screen when it's restored well, or when you see it on the big screen restored.
Absolutely. They're just so vibrant. And I always loved Esther's characters too. She didn't suffer any fools. So for her time, she was kind of ballsy.
Yeah. Well, she must have had, I know I've read a biography, but she must have had a little more control than a lot of others for some reason. I don't know how she did that, but she definitely, I think, had more control.
Yeah, I think she talks in the book about she was really the only person in films doing what she did. So as a result, she kind of had some authority to say, that's not happening, or I can't do that, or she knew what she was capable of more than the people on her crew, right? So
no, that's fabulous. Next book.
The next one is a really delightful book about Cary Grant called Evenings with Cary Grant.
Yeah.
And I just read this for the first time last month. I was on vacation and brought it with me. And what I love about it is we were talking earlier today about there's other biographies that have just come out about Cary Grant that are kind of a darker, maybe more realistic look at who Cary Grant really was. But these are anecdotes that the author has collected from his friends or from fellow celebrities that just paint the picture of his most delightful, charming aspects. And I just love the tone of the book is so delightful and light. It isn't a heavy read. And so I really appreciated that after reading. I love reading the heavier ones too. It tells the full story, but this was kind of just a breezy read about his most charming self.
Yeah. Did you say that you did read the Scott Berg one yet? Or
yes.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah. I want to get that one to read it. Who's the author of that one again? I can't remember because it's
Nancy Nelson.
Yes. Yeah. And I just recently rewatched Charade, and that's it is a really good one. It's like he's so laid back in it. Like compared, like when you look at some of the earlier ones, it seems like he's a little uptight on the screen, and then when you see this one, he's just everything flows naturally for him. Or at least that's how I saw it. Yeah,
I think so too. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, from what I remember reading, is he didn't want to be the character who was pursuing Pepper, and he wanted to be pursued because he felt like it wasn't realistic at the age he was at for him to pursue her. But you're right. As a result, he kind of just sits back and lets the action happen, right?
Yeah. And there's other one. What's your favorite film with him, or do you have one?
Oh, that's hard.
I know that's a difficult question.
Probably Notorious, the Hitchcock with Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah, that is a good one. I've been like, while I asked you that, I was trying to think, and that is a good one. Even was it Suspicion is fabulous as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you must have seen None But the Lonely.
Oh yeah.
But he didn't like that one, and from what I understood, he didn't like the films that didn't make money.
Right.
So he didn't like that one. And Father Goose, I don't think, made any money, and he didn't like that one either.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And that's where he's a little it's sort of similar character in from Charade, because he's I don't want this, this,
And he's so against type there in terms of his image, right? Like he's a slob, and but it's fun to see him like that. It's fun to see him in a different context.
Yeah, the filthy beast.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Well, that goes back to somebody else that was in Leslie Carroll. Is that her name? Yeah, that was in musicals. Yeah. So sort of full circle here.
Yeah, I mean, she's funny in Father Goose. She was good at comedy.
Yeah. Oh, she was. Oh, that just reminds me. Over here they put out. Oh, what's the name of the film? It's with Frederic March it's Frederic March. It was I should have thought of this before to look it up, but it's an early like 1932 film, and he's in there as he's got a small part, and it's one of his very first parts. And as I was talking about being uptight, he's very uptight in there.
Is it about flying, that movie?
No, not that. No, I know which one you mean there. No, this is about a couple that sort of they both drink heavily and they sleep around with everyone, and it's like in the 30s, and it was a female director. Oh, I've got it here on Blu-ray. If I remember, I'll put it down for anybody else in the thing, and then I'll find out after, and I'll let you know what it is.
Yeah.
In the thing, it's really good, and it's just, I think, finally got a proper release. But yeah, no sense me continue talking about it if I can't think of the title. But I'll put it down in the description for sure.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Pre-code.
Yeah, it might. I think it is pre-code. Yeah, it must be pre-code because they wouldn't have got away with any of that without. And it was really the only female director that went all the way through the 30s. And it's really bugging me that I can't think of her name, but I will put it all down in the description for anybody who's interested, and then I'll let you know after.
Yeah, I'd love to watch that.
So yeah, are we up to 3 now, I think, or
we just did 2. You want to go to the third one?
Yeah. Or okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Cary Grant?
Oh, well, one thing about this book that's fun, I should have set the context for it. So Nancy Nelson knew Cary Grant because he, near the end of his life, did these personal appearance tours called, and that's where the title comes from, Evenings with Cary Grant. It was called An Evening with Cary Grant, and he would have kind of his monologue that he'd introduce the show with, but then he would do a question and answer session. And Nancy is the person who convinced him to do this, because as you know, probably, he didn't like talking about himself or doing interviews about himself or anything. So the fact that she had that connection to him and knew him, I think sets the tone for the really loving tribute that she puts forth in the book. So, and she kind of talks in the first chapter about knowing him and her experience with him. So it's a really lovely book.
Yeah, I remember reading it quite a while ago when I was back in Canada, I think. Yeah. And as soon as you're talking about that all comes back as memory. But if you would ask me, I wouldn't have heard it. But yeah, no, I remember it being really, really good. And that's why I want to contrast. I think I've read one other biography about him. Yes. And I think I've got that one here. But I want to read the Scott Berg one. Do you remember who the other one that they came out about the same time? Do you remember who the other one was? Or
there's one. Is the Scott Iman one the one you're thinking of, or is the Scott Berg one? Because I think.
Oh yeah, it might be Scott. Yeah, it might be Scott Iman. Yeah, I was thinking Scott Berg.
I think that's the one I read last year. But there was another one. Was there another one that came out?
Sorry.
Was there another one that came out around?
Yeah, at the same time. There was 2 roughly, and yeah, you're right. It's Scott Iman. So forget everybody what I said about Scott Berg. And I've got to get Louise Brooks' name in. He's the author of the Louise Brooks book. So, and I'll get a lot of comments about that. Not Louise Brooks again.
That's funny. His books are always so in depth, though, eh? Like very well researched, and yeah.
Yeah, no, they're good. Yeah, no, that's the one I want to get. But yeah, and again, I can't remember what the other one was. But I don't know why they decided to put 2 out like very close to each other, and that's why I thought it'd be interesting to compare that one. And I can't remember I can't see it on the shelf there. I can't remember what the other author is, but there's been many obviously of him. But I want to contrast those, especially the evening one with the Scott Iman, and then the other one, especially right at the same time. And apparently there's different tones, like they take a different tact. That's what I read in a review.
Yeah, the Scott Iman one was quite dark from my perspective. Kind of the dark underbelly that we all know about. I mean, that's why I love Notorious so much, his performance in that, because you see that darkness. Hitchcock kind of unleashed that, and it comes right. It's so palpable to feel that this man had so much all the underlying demons, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it's got to do from being he was born in Bristol, and his mother, and everything, that he really tried to keep that secret, that his mother was mentally ill. Like, it was just a huge burden for him.
Yeah, and the fact that he thought she was dead as a child. Like, talk about the trauma of that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
So yeah.
You want to go to the next one?
Yeah. Well, we could just continue to talk about Cary Grant for 5 hours, I suppose. Maybe not.
I'm sure we could, and then no one would be left at the end. The next one is a Debbie Reynolds memoir called Make Him Laugh. She wrote a few books, but I picked this one because they're just little anecdotes that she wrote, and you can just hear her voice. If you've seen Debbie in interviews, you know that she loved an audience, and she loved a story, a tall tale, as they say. And it's just a really fun look back at people she knew and her experience with her co-stars at MGM and the Gabors, which she did a great Zsa Zsa Gabor impression. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
I think I remember something about that. Yeah.
So it's just a little, and then she has little pictures of her. She loved to keep movie memorabilia and stuff. Sure So there's stories in here about her trying to get she desperately wanted a costume museum that that was like her big dream, which never came to fruition, really sadly. But it's a really fun romp of a book. So if I were stranded on an island, I'd want Debbie's funny voice in my ear, I think.
Well, like, have you ever seen that photograph? It's like I think it's a Christmas photograph, and she's dressed up like a doll. She's obviously young, but she's dressed up like a doll in like a doll box.
Yes, I have seen that.
It would not go over today well.
No. I mean, but of her time, I mean, she was so tiny, right? She kind of had that image for a while, I think.
Yeah, and she did collect like all the dresses and everything. And I think it's not too long ago. It's only a few years that the auction, I think, was.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is too bad that they didn't, it didn't go somewhere as a whole. I think it was just all split up. It was. Yeah. Which
is so sad. I mean, she had legitimate treasures in there. Like, she had Marilyn Monroe's 7-year itch dress. She had a version of the ruby slippers. I mean, it's shocking to me. And now, of course, the Academy has opened a museum now that she's gone. And like, all those treasures are now scattered around the world, which is kind of a drag. But
I remember, I think that was the first time I saw, it was Claudette Colbert's dress from somewhere. And it was obviously a black and white film, and then they showed it green, and I'm going, that doesn't look right.
I know.
It just doesn't look right, but it was so contrasted to that, and it was just so amazing to see. And I remember seeing other pictures. Yeah, like you're saying, I think she had some Gone with the Wind gowns, you name it. She had everything, and other knickknacks as well, like props and all sorts of stuff. That was just amazing. And I bet somebody's going, Debbie Reynolds, I know that name. She was the mother of somebody that was very popular as well.
She used to introduce herself. I'm Princess Leia's mother. Yeah, Carrie Fisher.
That was a strange thing, because she died, and then her mother dies fairly close after,
Just a couple days, I know.
Yeah.
There's actually another great book. I don't know if you've read it, but it's Todd Fisher, who's Carrie's brother, wrote about that whole thing, about how Cary and Debbie's relationship and how they died so close together and what it was like for him. It's
No, I haven't. I didn't even know about that. No, yeah.
it's a beautiful book. I forget what it's called, but it just came out a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow, that would be interesting. Yeah, and it'd be good if somebody actually does a really good biography of her, and I mean of well, Carrie Fisher, I'm sure as well, but Debbie Reynolds, and talk about like, to me it'd be so fascinating after her sort of well, during her movie career, but after, with all the collecting, and talk about how she did this and why, you know.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, I don't think there's too many actors that have, or actresses that ever did something like that. You know, it's usually somebody else outside of the business that collects that stuff. I can't think of anybody that actually did. There might be, but I can't think of anybody.
I can't think of anyone either. And when I think she was really ahead of her time in how she thought about these items. I mean, she was apparently at the MGM auction when MGM was folding in 1970 or whatever, and was the first one/only celebrity there collecting these items, you know, probably for not a lot of money at that point. But, you know, now you look at nostalgia and the kind of legendariness of these items. She was really ahead of her time, which is just all the more shocking that there wasn't anyone who saw her vision and wanted to collaborate with her on making it happen. I don't know. It's just
and as you say, the Academy does something after, and it's like they must be sitting there and going, well, why didn't, you know, like, somebody needs to be fired there, I think.
I know. I think so too.
But yeah, well, that actually, mentioning MGM, I think that could segue perfectly into the next book, even if it's not the next one on the pile.
Sure, I'll bring it over. This is, you said you have this one, right?
Yes, yeah.
The MGM story. I bought a copy of this, but I used to, as a kid, I was a nerdy kid, used to loan this from the library about every few months and look through it. But I don't think you can get through this and see everything. You know, it's just that kind of book that there's so much text on it basically goes through every movie that MGM made.
Yeah.
From its infancy to the 70s.
Yeah, there's newer editions, and I remember somebody saying, "Oh, but it's not up to date," and I go, well, I don't care about the movies after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that.
Exactly. I love this one though, because do you think it's every movie? Do you think they dedicate it to every single film?
I think it is. Like, there's a whole series. There's Warner Brothers, there's Paramount, there's RKO. I've got I think I've got them all, and I can't remember what else. And then they did some other ones that were dedicated, like Westerns. There's a musical one and things. I think those are sort of culled from that, but with them all. But yeah, it's great because you can just look up every film and you got the whole cast, the information, and usually some really good stills from it. It's just a great coffee table type book that you just can flip through.
It is. And I think it would be great if this was one of the books on the desert island, because there'd be always something new to discover, I think. You would never be able to read every single word of text in this, I don't think. It's just that in depth. And well,
the other thing is too, that if you've seen a lot of the stuff, it will bring back a lot of memories of the films as well.
Absolutely.
And that would be great.
Yeah. So iconic, right? Like, even the cover, like all the stars that were under contract.
Yeah. I forget, what's the guy's name now?
Who wrote it?
Yeah, what's his name?
John Douglas Eames. I've never heard of.
Yeah. I think he might have done them all. I think he did. I'm not sure. I
didn't know that. I didn't know that there was one for every studio.
Yeah, there is. They're really good. Oh, sorry, you're going to be now out going collecting bugs.
Yeah, that's nothing new in this house.
So yeah, no, that I love those. And yeah, so again, other than the musicals for MGM, what other ones do you like?
From MGM specifically, or?
Yeah. That's a hard question because I'm trying to think specifically MGM as well. Yeah.
I mean, the first person who came into my mind who's not a musical star from MGM, but who I love, is Greer Garson. Like Random Harvest is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. They did romance well, MGM, I feel. You know, they could tell those grand stories. And I mean, Mrs. Miniver is kind of a propaganda film.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
It's a great film, you know. What else? I'm trying to think. I mean, I feel like their musicals are what kind of live on in a big way now. Yes. But they really did everything. I mean,
I'm trying to think now. Is it what's the one with Edward G. Robinson? You know, Rico. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Little Caesar. Was that was MGM? I think it wasn't it.
I don't know. Maybe it was probably either that or Warner Brothers.
Yeah, it's one or the other because it just for some reason I'm thinking MGM, but it's just I love Edward G. Robinson anyway. So.
Yeah, you know what a fabulous MGM movie is The Women.
Oh yeah, well Paula Goddard's on it. You know, everybody's on it. You know.
Yeah, Rosalind Russell.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I was just doing a live with somebody else, like on our BookTube channel, and somebody asked me about what I think of Norma Shearer, and I just sort of said I don't think she was a very good actress, but I forgot I was going to say, but in the Women, she's works well. Yeah. But yeah,
I agree with you. She's never been my favorite, but she is good in The Women.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love it. No, I love Paula Goddard as well, and I love her character in that. And there is the color sequence in it, isn't it?
The fashion show.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a good. I'd love to get a really nice Blu-ray or something of it with a bunch of extras because you could do so much with that film. So much. Yeah, it just and I love the there's like almost a title card. And I can't remember the wording, but it's so sort of pointed at the women of you know, I think gossiping and stuff like this. But it's just, again, it's not something you'd be able to probably put in a movie today. But it just is so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it now with my eyes and think, okay, there's some real badass stuff happening. I mean, the coding of the time is, I don't want to spoil it, but she goes back to her husband and it's a happy ending and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, if you look at it without that ending, it's pretty like ahead of its time, really, in terms of the relationships. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It is a really good film. And I've always thought it was. And then when people, like other people, some people I know in the past, like they're saying and going, oh, well, that's a girl's film. And I go, no.
No.
You know, and it's like, no, it isn't. Have you seen it? You know?
Exactly. And so many of those women's pictures.
Yeah.
I hate that term, but they're great films, just period.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the thing. I always I guess I'm getting a reputation for being a bit of a curmudgeon because I always say, you know, because I'll take a few moments here.
Sure.
People call stuff like, well, we mentioned Cary. People call Star Wars a classic film.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work for me. It's like I have trouble even bringing like early 60s films into classic film. To me, it's pre-60. But I sort of say pre-1965 and before. Okay, I'll accept that's classic.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm the same way. And you know, even I love Turner Classic Movies, and I agree with them. There are classic films that happened after that, but when I first think of the word classic, I'm with you. It's like before the studio system truly collapsed, and you know, it was that kind of era of time.
Yeah.
From the 30s to the I mean, Bonnie and Clyde's kind of the turning point in 67, right? Where it kind of all starts to shift.
Yeah. Well, it's like everything. There's a definite. Well, and not just that, with the studios, there's a definite shift in the style of filming, like the new wave films and stuff coming from Europe, like that effect is coming in, and it's, you know, and it just changes things. Oh, what was I gonna say? Sorry, I've lost the thought. I think it had to do with well, the classic sense, and a lot of people, they, I think like people say that you know, classic movie or classic whatever is when you're 12 to 14, and it's whatever is around, and then as you grow up to be an adult, and I don't quite buy that.
No, I don't either. But when I was 12 to 14, I was watching MGM musicals.
Well, that's a good point, because when you were that age, the Turner Classic Network was on.
Yep.
And that was, I don't know. Okay, let's just go back. When we first started chatting on Twitter, that's got to be a good 10 years ago, I think, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Pretty much since I first joined, we've been talking on Twitter.
Yeah. And so that's a good 10 years. And I don't want to say your age, but I'll talk about others that I've talked to, that they were young people. And there was one person that was, I think, 13 or 14, that all she would do was consistently put up pictures of and stuff about classic film. And I found out, hey, and it was neat. And I think back, and it has to be because of Turner Classic Network.
I think it's a huge part of it. I mean, I know for me, I grew up watching VHSs of the musicals because my parents would show me them, and my grandpa would make trips to Las Vegas, and so he'd get me the VHSs at the MGM Grand and that kind of thing. But when I was starting to then expand my film palette, you're right, TCM was on, and it's just this ripple effect, right? This domino effect. The more you watch one person in one movie, you're like, ooh, I want to see what else they were in, what else did they do in it, and you suddenly become really obsessed with the whole classic movie. At least in my experience, it kind of started with the musicals, but I think a lot of people say that the musicals were kind of their jumping off point, and then that expanded into, you know, really loving film noir and screwball comedies and, you know, all the different genres. And TCM is a huge factor. I mean, I was a 14-year-old who loved Robert Osborne, you know, because, and then I got to meet him at one of the festivals. That was like my ultimate kind of starstruck moment, was meeting Robert Osborne. But I think you're right. I think the fact that channel exists, and if people were channel surfing and you were at a certain age, then you were hooked. And I think it's a real testament to that channel. Yeah,
and that's the thing. When it's not there, nobody gets a chance to experience this stuff. And since this is a booktube channel and we're on here, it's the same as bookstores. There's no used bookstores anymore, so people don't get to see, like, it's you know, they whatever they see new books, they think those are well made and things like that, and films, because they've never seen, they've never had the experience or the ability or the chance to see old films.
You're right.
And that's why I was so disgusted with TCM here in England, because they mostly played newer films, you know, and I think at 3 a.m. they might have played an old, you know, a black and white film at 3 or 4 a.m. You know,
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. And they had commercials. Oh. They had commercials in as well.
Oh, that's so strange. That's so. I'm lucky. I'm Canadian. Sometimes we don't get exactly what the U.S. watches, but it's still uncut, commercial free, and yeah.
Well, I love what they do as well. They'll do these retrospectives or something like that. Like they'll do some silent stuff, and they'll just, like, 24 hours or just an actor, and they just play stuff. And it's really those, I think, from what I remember, and a friend of mine still tells me, is that they start, when they do the retrospective, they pull out stuff that they may not have played ever.
Yes.
You know, from the archive. And that's really cool, because those are the ones that you want to watch, because, you know, everybody's seen Casablanca. If you're a fan, everybody's seen X, everybody's seen Y, but it's these oddities that have never seen the light of day for decades.
Exactly.
Anyway,
yeah, it's a big deal when it's a TCM premiere, right? You're like, ooh, this is something really from the vault, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm just so glad that what's his name never went and fully colorized everything. Turner. Turner. There was the whole thing, and there was enough outrage to stop him.
Yeah.
And I bet Jane Fonda says, she might have left him for that. Oops, I better not say that.
Maybe.
I'd like to think that in my world that would happen.
Yeah, right. In our film buff brain, that's what happened. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've diverted enough there for now. We'll go back to the books.
Okay. So this next one is John Fricke. If you know anything about Judy Garland biographies, John Fricke's kind of the authority on Judy Garland. And this is his I think he wrote a book about the Wizard of Oz first, I think, but this was his first book on Judy as a whole, World's Greatest Entertainer. And you can see the sticker here. Oh no, you can't. I remember getting this at Kohl's Books. It was in the display case in the mall. And I remember seeing Judy as I walked by. I was about 7 years old. Wow. And this is the book I bought. So this is the same edition. It's been well loved over the years, but I think it's one of the most in-depth studies of her career, for sure. It takes you through, her childhood and then her MGM years. And then into her concert career. But there's gorgeous pictures like this in here. And again, he's someone who writes lovingly about her, like in a way that's still realistic, but you can tell is approaching it from a place of love and not trying to judge her or lean into the darkness of the tragedy of her life, as so many people like to do. But
yeah. And I think that is sort of an example of there's good things for the studio. Her experiences was sort of the bad side of the studios.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you like her voice as well. I'm sure. Or I should have said you don't like her voice, do you? No, you don't.
I always say to people, I'm a singer because of her, because she. Apparently, this is what my parents tell me. The only thing that, as an infant, that would make me stop crying was a music box that played Over the Rainbow. And I know. And I was glued as a 2-year-old, apparently, to The Wizard of Oz. There was just something about her and her voice and how captivating it was. And I don't think I'm the only one who would say this, she just captivated you. And I think the fact that she was so vulnerable and open as a kid, you just respond to that. There's no artifice, that it's all so genuine. And obviously that voice, I mean, it's unmatched. So I would say she's my number one reason for singing. She just was the one who did it so well. She sets the bar for everyone else, in my opinion, in terms of giving your whole self over through song. And actually, John Fricke, the guy who wrote this book, we're actually planning, he's coming here to my town, and he's going to do an event, a talk, and then the next night we're going to do a concert together. So he's going to narrate it and I'm going to sing, and it's going to be a whole weekend tribute to Judy, which is so exciting.
Please stream this and let me know. Please stream it and let me know.
I know. We'll have to find a way to stream it for sure.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, I love her voice. Like, I suppose she would be in probably a top 5 for vocalists for me. And she's really good. And most people I think just know her from Wizard of Oz, basically, which is a fabulous looking film. Again, Technicolor, going back to Technicolor is just fabulous.
Gorgeous.
It's tragic. She had a tragic life. And you do hear these things saying, oh, well, it was her choice and stuff. And I'm going, well, sometimes when you got two choices and both of them are bad, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as you say, it's the dark side of the studio system. Like someone like her, who due to her history was probably predisposed to addiction, or and if that's something that's offered on the table as very accessible, then what are you going to do, right? I mean, it's kind of destiny.
And I'm sure encouraged as well.
Yeah,
encouraged to keep someone in line. That would be helpful, probably. That is the dark side of Hollywood, or one of the dark sides.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go to something maybe a little brighter. Sure.
This is a fiction. I'm finally doing some fiction after all these biographies. This is Herman Wouk's Marjorie Morningstar, which I think this cover must have been released when the movie came out, because that looks like a cartoon rendering of Natalie Wood, who played her in the movie.
I think it is. Yeah, I've never read the book. I've seen the film. I've read other Herman Wouk, but I've not read that one.
I read this. I think one of the reasons I love this book, I've only read it once, but I read it when I was about Marjorie's age. So the character's 17, 18 in the book and in the movie, I think. But I just so identified with her trying to find her way and trying to establish herself. What would her identity be? Not what someone's thrusting upon her, or or what society tells her she should be. And so I just really identified with the whole narrative of the book. I think the movie's not amazing. I still watch it and enjoy it, but I think the book's better. As you can see, it's well loved.
Oh, it's a wonderful cover. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Did you see the movie sorry, you might have actually said that. Did you see the movie first and then read the book, or vice versa?
That's a great question. I think I did see the movie first and then read the book and then watched the movie again, probably to compare how they changed it. But they do make some changes in the movie. I don't want to give it away, but
they always do.
Yeah. But it's a fascinating, for a coming of age story, right? And which way are you going to go? And obviously, because it's of its time, it's really a question in the narrative of what man is she going to end up with, and how will that define her. But reading it with my lens of someone who thankfully existed post that, it's really, to me, a journey of anyone growing up and trying to figure out who they are, and trying not to be informed by what other people say you should be, or how you should act, or who you should end up with, and all that stuff. So
yeah. No. And as you say, it's not a great film, but Natalie Wood, I think anything that she was in is worth seeing, because she's got such a film presence for some reason. Like she just she had it, I get well, that's a good word. She had the it factor, I think.
She did. I mean, even as a kid, she did.
Yeah. Well, it just, what was I rewatched again, Mrs. Miniver. And she's not in it much, but just even as a little child, she steals the scene at times, for some reason. And it's just, and that's why she was popular. The other studios wanted to have her on, even a child. It's just like, they could probably get any child to do that role, but she was in demand for that. And it's just weird.
I think it's so interesting too. She was one of the child stars that, at least to my eyes, effortlessly made that transition.
Yes.
To adulthood. And I think Rebel Without a Cause had a lot to do with that. But she really believably then morphed into the leading lady roles, and was it's not like people still had that image of her as a kid in their head. Like, she was able to truly transition, I think, and did some of her best work then once she was older too, I think.
Yeah.
She only got better.
Yeah. but yeah, like I guess yeah, the breakout I probably role for that was Rebel, most likely. That's the one that put her on the map for that. And what's the one that she plays? It's a dancer. I can't remember it. What's
Gypsy?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, she's got short hair, like you said. I think she's got short hair through some of it. I think very short hair.
Oh, well, maybe Inside Daisy Clover is what you're thinking of. She plays.
I can't remember, but I just remember that in whatever film I'm thinking of, so it doesn't help, but it was a film that she played a range of ability, not just one thing, because I think there was emotional turmoil for the character.
It sounds like Inside Daisy Clover.
It must be. Yeah.
She has that short haircut with the bangs in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's kind of a child star, right? And then she makes the transition. Yeah. And Christopher Plummer's in it, and Robert Redford. And,
yes, that is it then. Yeah, and I must be thinking if she's not a dancer in there, I must be thinking of I'm combining the two films. But
there's musical numbers in it. So
okay.
Yeah.
So that is the one then. That's the one. Yeah. I remember that because I just thought that her range of acting in that was bigger than in a lot of other films that she did.
Absolutely. There's one scene in that movie where she's pre-recording or overdubbing something. She's like a movie star in the movie, so she's going in and doing some behind-the-scenes work, and she essentially has a nervous breakdown in front of your eyes.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. I think it's some of her best work ever in that movie for sure.
Yeah, because it's sort of like you always kind of wonder how much of that was her. After you find out other things that happened to her, and you kind of wonder, was she drawing on something, from that? And I think, actors do, I think, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's continue. I do this all the time. I go on a tangent, but it's fun.
Oh yeah, I love it. This is From Reverence to Rape: The Treatment of Women in the Movies. You said you've never read this?
No, I've never seen that one.
Oh wow. Well, do you know Molly Haskell?
The name's familiar. There's another. What other books has she written?
She's written a book about Gone with the Wind called Frankly, My Dear. And she, Holding My Own and No Man's Land, she's written, and there's other ones she's written about the movies for sure. She was married to Andrew Sarris, who you might recognize his name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But this book, I mean, people who have read it kind of call it the gospel of women in film, because she really takes you through how women were perceived in movies through the decades. So she has 20s, 30s, 40s. She has a chapter on the women's film. We were talking about that, that genre. And then she goes into the European film as well. And it was written in the 70s. So it's kind of really, in my opinion, the first feminist examination of women in film, in film history. And I remember when I first read this, I was in my early 20s. And you know how sometimes you read something and you think, wow, it's like she's in my mind of how I feel, And she was able to so eloquently put down onto paper how I felt about certain movie stars, or how women were portrayed in film history, or what did people like Marilyn Monroe represent, or what did people like Rita Hayworth represent? What were the features of those screwball comedy heroines? So she takes you through all of those, and it's just such a fascinating and just, in my opinion, so on point analysis of women in films. And even, I mean, the title's so great too, right? From Reverence to Rape, which is true. I mean, it takes you through the whole gamut of how women were portrayed in old Hollywood, and it's not always pretty.
That's like I don't know if at the risk of losing viewers at this point once they watch this, Louise Brooks. Have you read her essays, Lulu in Hollywood?
No.
Because she talks about this kind of so not she doesn't get the details of it, but she talks about the studio system, how they use people and everything, but not into that much detail. But I'm sure she was aware of this, and that's why she just couldn't do it. She refused to do that kind of thing, and that's why it's so great. And there's some harrowing stories in there, especially about her friend. But yeah, I encourage you. It's very small. It's just her essays, and it's amazing. I think. Do you like Humphrey Bogart? She talks about Humphrey Bogart in there.
I'm not a huge Bogey fan, but I'm interested in it. Anyway.
Yeah. When you read her essay about Humphrey Bogart, you really have a different view of Humphrey Bogart.
Interesting.
You definitely will. But another book, I think, because I don't know that one. I want to get it now. There's one that I think could be a companion to it. You might know this one, Without Lying Down, by something Beauchamp.
Oh, yes. She's been at the festival, but I've never read it.
That's marvelous. It's
What's
marvelous.
It called?
Without Lying Down.
Okay. I got to look that up.
That's a really good one. And she's written other stuff that's really good. I can't remember the other titles, but I've only read that one by her. And I'd love to get the rest of them, but that is so good. It's more about the writers, basically, and I think some actors. But if I remember right, it's more about the writing of in Hollywood, the writers. I think that's where the concentration is. But yeah, I think it would go parallel. It would be a good companion to that one.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like it would for sure. But yeah, I'm curious to know what you think when you read it, because I know when people do. Even when I bought this at a used bookstore, and I don't know if the guy was a film buff or anything, but he's like, "Oh, this is a classic." That's what he said when I bought it. So,
what's it? I'm surprised that I haven't seen it or heard of it. But can't know everything.
No, we got to give you something that you have got to stump you at some point during this interview.
Well, that's the problem with these. I can't remember how many I've done right now, but there's always something new that comes here, and I'm going, I shouldn't be doing these. I shouldn't do these.
I think it's great that you're doing it. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I'm not even sure what number you're up, but
I think we have one more book.
Okay.
So my last one is Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. Yeah. Have you read this?
I've read Rebecca, and I think Jamaica Inn are the only two that I've read of hers. Yeah.
I think that's the same for me. I don't think I've read other, but I really like her writing. But I'm trying to think. Obviously, Hitchcock made Rebecca into a movie, but I think I might have read the book first. I think this might have been a situation where I read the book first and then watched the movie, and I think the book's better.
I think that most of the time. Yeah, they do. There's reason, like I do a little. I'll plug one of my other things that I do, a book to film thing. It's not in depth or anything like that, but it's like it's interesting where you get in a book, you get the depth and the layering of characters, and they just, when they make the film, a lot of times they just skim the veneer off the story and they don't get into any of that stuff. And it can still be a fabulous film, but it would be so much better when they get, if they dug into the deep. But then for a fact it would have been a flop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I think in the case of Rebecca, the character Max in the movie, if you watch the movie, it's all about the mystery of, was Max guilty of murdering his first wife, right? Like, was that, and in the book, he is responsible for killing her. But obviously they couldn't have done that with the code, right? So they kind of work around it, and it's more of it's an accident, or he wasn't actually responsible for it, or whatever, right? I still love the movie, but I think you're right. The book goes further and deeper and in a more effective way, for sure.
Yeah. And well, just thinking of that, like another Hitchcock one is Suspicion.
Yes.
Like, I think it was a bit of a cop out at the end. Well, we won't spoil it, but I think it was a cop out. If they would have made a dark ending, but that could have ruined Cary Grant's character, though. It could have.
Yeah.
But then to me, that clearly would have been his best film. To me, it would be the best film, but he wouldn't have made anything else after that.
That's right. So thank God it didn't happen, because that was only 1941.
Definitely. So yeah. So are you? Because we've mentioned Hitchcock several times. So is Hitchcock a big filmmaker for you?
I love Hitchcock. Yeah.
What about do you like his American films more than the British, or British more than the American?
I mean, I really haven't gotten into the British as much, so I would have to say the American, but that's just based on what I've watched. But I've heard that the British would be more raw filmmaking, right? Like a bit more gritty, probably.
Some of them, yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen The Lady Vanishes.
Yes.
Yeah. That I think is the pinnacle of it. But have you seen any of the silent stuff, like The Lodger? You must have seen that at a festival or something. No,
I don't think so. I've seen The Original Man Who Knew Too Much, and but no, I haven't seen any. I don't think I've seen any of his silence. Maybe I'm a horrible Hitchcock fan.
They're good. There's some really neat things. I do encourage you to watch them and do a retrospective of his British stuff, the silence, and into the pick a few and then watch some in the 30s, and you do see a different filmmaker in many ways. What you see, especially also in The Lodger, what you see is shades of what happens even in Psycho.
Interesting.
The camera angles and stuff like that. It's sort of, he's working on these things. It only takes 30 years or so.
Right.
But no, yeah, I would encourage you to watch some of that, because most people, and that's the ones that, some of them until recently they've been hard to find, to actually see, and not aired so much. But also too, talking about Rebecca. Daphne du Maurier, he did the with Charles Laughton, the Jamaica Inn.
Yes, which I've been dying to see, and I need to just sit down and watch it. I think I even have a copy of it. I just haven't watched it.
Well, Charles Laughton is Charles Laughton, but he's good. He's good in that. He's very good.
Oh, that's great. Oh yeah, well, Hitchcock, he's a genius. I mean, there's no doubt about it in my opinion. But
I want to see the film. There's a film that's been made about his life, and I haven't seen it. Like it's not a documentary. It's just a regular film, and I can't remember.
I think I've seen that. I think I saw that in the theater. Is Helen Mirren in it or someone like that?
Possibly, yeah. I remember seeing previews of it, and I thought I would like to see that. But I haven't. And also too, the whole thing is like, Elma Ravel, his wife, like there's so much stuff that she was always in the background, and she did so much editing in that, and I don't think he would have been who he was without her.
Totally. I think if it's the movie I'm thinking of, a lot of the movie revolves around that.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's good. Yeah. Because I remember at a British Silent Film Festival, I forget which silent they screened, but it was like it was sort of discovered that she did so much on that film, and I can't remember which one it was, but she did so much editing on it that it was unknown actually until sort of, I think it was sort of dug out of the archive and looked at, which was really neat.
That's so interesting.
The woman behind the man.
Exactly.
So yeah, so music now, and you've got the first.
I got the first record, eh?
Yeah, the first vinyl.
This is a Doris Day album that she made in the early 60s called Duet with Andre Previn. And you know what? I've even said before this podcast, I said, this is my Desert Island album. So, so when I was actually forced to pick one, I knew what one I'd pick. So I don't know if you've ever heard this, but oh, look at her there. It's
Yeah.
adorable. I've always, as a jazz musician, I love jazz singers, but I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. One thing I don't always love about jazz singers is they're so focused on style that they don't pay as much attention to the lyrics. And I think since I'm such a musicals girl, I love a singer that tells the story and then also has style when they do it. And to me, Doris is among the best people who ever did that. And this album is the closest to a jazz album she ever got, because she had Andre Previn and his trio playing for her. And Andre, I don't know, do you know Andre Previn?
I don't know that much about him, but I know the music and stuff like that, you know, but not no details, in other words.
Okay. Well, he was at MGM actually in the music department when he was really young, and kind of known as this wunderkind, like this little not child prodigy, but really young person who had all this talent. But he was and actually wrote the song you're gonna hear from me, which is from Inside Daisy Clover, which was on my debut album. Anyway, all these 6 Degrees of Separation. But he was a piano player and a great jazz musician. And he and Doris decided to make this album, and he wrote some stuff for her. They had sessions together where they would chat, and it's a really intimate album, which I love. It's like just piano, bass, drums. Sometimes it's just piano and her and Doris. And I actually got to do a centennial concert about Doris because it was her 100th birthday this year. But
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but I think she's so underrated as a vocalist. People kind of remember her as the movie star now, or the sex comedy person, or whatever, right? But it's such a gorgeous album, and you can tell it's all live off the floor. There's no, obviously of its era, there's no editing. It's just so raw and gorgeous, and her voice is right at the forefront. And you get to hear her do some jazz arrangements, which is so fun because often her recordings were so schlocky for the time, right? It was like the 1950s and she was giving these novelty songs, or, you know, a lot of material that didn't have much depth. And here it's just like pared down. It's pure style, pure music. And it's such a gorgeous album.
Yeah, well, I like that, the pared down. I think, you know, I've said that to you in the past. When you're there just with the piano or one other instrument,
yeah,
that's what I love of you know, when jazz, you know, when you get the whole orchestra and stuff like that, I don't want to say it diminishes the singer, but they sometimes, or they can get lost. They can get lost in everything else.
Yeah, it can get too overblown or something. It's too bloated. It kind of takes away the music almost, as opposed to just zeroing in on it, right? Yeah. So that's my pick. And yes, I do have it in vinyl, and I do have a vinyl collection. You were saying then we wouldn't have to worry about the electricity, right? We could just use
Yeah, because like when I started this all, and I made a video to ask people to do this, and I was saying, well, you can't take ebooks because, you know, you won't have electricity to charge this, but you can take a CD. Then I paused and go, we won't worry about the contradiction.
Exactly. I was wondering about that. I was like,
Yeah, well, I said on someone else's, and they asked me about that. I said, well, you don't need a player. It's a magical island. The CD will just play itself.
There you go.
You need electricity. Just make it up as I go along.
Perfect. It's perfect.
But yeah, you just need a wind up Victrola, and you're gone. You're all set.
That's right. I hope I wouldn't get sick of this. That's the only fear I have. If it were the only album, would I finally tire of it? I don't know.
That is the thing. It's like the same as the books. Like, you want something that, you know, you can reread, and that will, you know, bring back maybe other memories. So that's why I like the idea of the MGM book, because, you know, I could go through something like, oh, I remember the first time I saw that, you know, what I felt about it, you know, and stuff like that, you know, and that's that would be great, because you could just lose yourself for however long, 5 minutes to 5 hours, you know, in something
That's
like
true. Temporarily forget that you're stranded and
that. Yes.
be in that other world.
Yeah. So now we're up to the luxury item, and this one I don't know yet. So surprise me with your luxury item.
Well, for a while I wondered if I should bring my wedding ring, but then I thought maybe I would already have it on. And is that really a luxury item? I don't know.
No, you'd have it on.
But what I decided was I'd bring my Vitamix blender. Because I thought, okay, I'm stranded on a desert island, but maybe there'd be fruit.
Yes.
And then I could maybe, you know, change it up, spice it up, and make some smoothies.
Well, I guess you'll have to use the magic for the power, I suppose.
That's right.
Either that or make yourself some kind of bicycle to power it.
Yeah, can occupy myself doing that.
Yeah.
But that was yeah, I had a hard time with that one. Figuring out. I'm not really a luxury person, so I was thinking, what even counts as a luxury item? But
yeah. Well, I guess anything like some have taken, like somebody took, like, you know, a sort of a container full of toilet paper.
Okay.
And I go, really? There'll be leaves everywhere.
Yes, but some people, yeah, I guess some people would be, that would probably be me too, actually. Maybe I should have been more practical, but.
but I guess that's what I guess that is a true luxury item for somewhere. That is a luxury to have. When you know, when in essence you don't need it, because it's like somebody said they were bringing soap, and I'm going, why do you need soap? There's no one around. You can stink to high heaven. Who cares? But it was that's what I was going to say once you said, but and then it says, oh, they like the smell, and they'll just, you know, use it for the smell and the aroma and stuff like that. I can't say anything against that now.
That's true. It's true. Yeah. And if
so,
all you got is the same food over and over, then maybe you can at least change up the recipe, right? Like,
yes. Yeah. No, this has been great, Mary Catherine. I really love this, and it's the first time that we've actually got together to speak over. I know there's been gaps between, you know, messaging and stuff like that, but I enjoyed that all the time too, and watching you know, go from you know, doing smaller recordings, and then getting, you know, I think the first time, I don't think you did really any. Oh no, you were still doing live stuff, I think. Yeah, but not too much, I think, at the beginning.
And like years ago, you're talking about?
Yeah. When we first sort of connected through Twitter.
No, you're right. That would have been pre my professional career. So you've known me since before that.
But yeah, and I just miss, or not miss. I just wish I could see you live doing stuff, because as I say, I'll say it over again. If anybody wants to listen to a fabulous voice that just looking at you, I can't believe the voice that comes out of you. It's kind of like Judy Garland. You look at her; she's so tiny. How do you have a voice like that? You know, how do people have voices like that? I just don't get it. And but anyway, I'll end it there, because I'll start gushing too much, because you have a wonderful voice.
You're too kind. Thank you so much.
But yeah, and what's upcoming? Well, okay, let me see when this is going to come out. This is going to come out. Let me check. I've got a date for yours, so I don't want to say what you're going to do next week, because that won't work. It'll be weeks after. I think it's going to be near the end of. I better look here first before I even open my mouth. No, actually, it's going to be. But I think it's 16th of September. Oh no, wait a minute. What's the Sunday after the 11th of September?
Let's see. Where's my calendar here? The Sunday after the 11th is the 18th.
So that's when it's gonna come out and be played on my channel. So what are you doing after that, or do you know when's this concert that you're doing?
Yeah, the Judy. So we're doing a Judy weekend. That's not till April 2023.
Okay.
But that's the kind of big project on the horizon. But I'm going to be in Indiana. If anyone's in the Indiana and like Goshen, Indiana, I'm going to be there for a conference.
Goshen, Indiana.
Really?
Howard Hawks was born there. He lived there.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure it's Howard Hawks. Yeah.
Oh wow! So I'm doing a classical show there, but I'm also going to be at doing a gig there on, I think it's Sunday the 3rd of October at a local pub. So you can keep your eye out for that if you're Sunday, October 2nd, if you're in that area. Okay. And then my Christmas album comes out this November. So you'll see, if you follow me on YouTube, you'll see the teasers come out for that. And then the album drops in late November. So that's exciting. And then if you're in the Ontario area in like southwestern Ontario, I'll be doing the Jazz Room in Waterloo CD release concert there. I think it's December 16th. So that's kind of the big stuff that's coming up.
Oh, okay. That's great. Yeah. And thank you very much. And I'd like to maybe have you back sometime if I ever get around to doing other movie stuff, and especially musicals.
Oh, I'd love that.
We could chat about the music, because musicals have never been a big thing for me. I enjoyed them, but I never really delved into them. And I'm using my YouTube channel or BookTube channel to do things that I've never done and want to do, and delving into other things, and as an excuse.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I'd love to do, I don't know when this will happen. It could be next year. But I would love to do something like that. So I hope to see you back for something. Not Desert Island Books. Well, we could always do a second part.
Yeah. I've got more books.
Yes. Anyway, thanks everybody. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Yeah, stick around and we'll finish the recording.